Paranoia. In the land of extremes, madness consumes all. Everyone has chinks in their armor, and paranoia exploits these chinks. So that was where I found myself, on the land of extremes, Antarctica. Vostok Station proudly holds the crown for recording the coldest ever reading temperature on Earth. That was where I was staying for 4 months in the middle of winter. Have you ever experienced complete darkness before, a night that goes on for 4 entire months? My name is Mordecai Mussolini, and this is my story. I had always been wary of Iratus. He was a beast to behold, with muscled arms and a temper to match. I knew from the start that his son's death had snapped his mental capacity for rational thinking. Bunkered down in the middle of winter on the harshest place on Earth with no friendly soul to hear your screams, this is a truly frightening place to be. That was where I was stuck in a research lab with Iratus slowly speculating, slowly growing mad, and slowly turning on everyone. It was subtle but noticeable. Whenever I passed him in the hallway, dick bags showed in his eyes and a nauseating odor steamed off him. Suspicious eyes glowered at Iratus as the first death occurred. It was poor old Mr. Wignall's, a lively chef on Vostok. He was decapitated on his desk. This was ramping up into something big. No formal investigation was made, since in the heart of winter no vehicle could possibly penetrate the blizzards that howled through the eternal night. After Mr. Wignall's death, it seemed that Iratus had gained a thorough feeling of euphoria when killing. He didn't even hide the manic glint in his eyes as he eyed every team member on Vostok Station. There was no official leader on an international base owned by Russia, so no one stood up to him. Everybody kept their head down and pretended that this monster was non-existent. It didn't work. The second axe murder victim was Mr. Stephens, an irritating fool who was in search for ice core sample. Nevertheless, he didn't deserve what happened to him. Decapitated on his desk, only someone with immense strength could have performed such a feat. All signs pointed towards Iratus, yet no one stood up. That was when he knew that he had ultimate control over Vostok. One by one the inhabitants of Vostok were disposed to feed the hunger that had overcome Iratus. He was always hungry, and blood was the only method to quench it. After the third axe murder, a brave woman stood up. Her name was Mrs. Tanis. Iratus was to be evicted into the tunnels snaking through Vostok underground. It was a brilliant idea. Exits were scarce and the tunnels were hard to navigate even with a map. The night after her proposal, a blood-curdling scream was heard in Mrs. Tanis' cabin. Since then nobody had the will to stand up to the tyranny that Iratus had imposed. I fled into the very tunnels that were supposed to imprison Iratus. I was too scared to fight, so I ran instead. I hid down there as Iratus sowed death and blood all over Vostok. It wasn't long before the screaming had stopped, and I knew that I was the last one left. I knew now that I couldn't run anymore. I could only retaliate. Even monsters have to sleep, and so when he was dozing with his blood-drenched hands, I slit his throat. I couldn't describe what I was feeling on that night. Was it elation that I had finally ended the monster, or was it disgust that I had done what he had been doing? Was I embracing his ways? Had I become the monster of what he once was? I knew that when summer came and rescue crews could come, no amount of explanation would sway them in the view of the torrential bloodbath. Have I become Iratus? Maybe. Time will tell. And whiskey helps.